How do you become a six-tool player, and what does that even mean? In the video today, we're going to take a deep dive. We're going to build a system together, and this is what everybody should be doing in your off season. Ideally, you should do this right at the end of your season, but right now, still a good time to do it. And we're going to go over the 5 physical tools, and then the 1 bonus tool, in my opinion, that's going to make all the difference to be the best player you can be the best baseball or softball player you can be, and really take your game to the next level. Really give yourself a chance to get to your goals, right? Like everybody has a dream, a vision of where they see themselves in the future. They want to play college ball, they want to play pro ball, they want to be a major leaguer. And that has to start somewhere. That has to start with a game plan. So let's talk about this. What are the 5 tools as a baseball or softball player? Hitting, fielding, throwing, meaning your velocity, running speed. Hitting has 2. Hitting is hitting power, hitting contact. So that's where you get the 5. And so the 6th one is mindset. And that's the thing that we're all ignoring. And you get a lot of my content and how I talk about mindset and the importance of it. But that's a 6-tool player. If you can have those 6 things and you can improve in each one, you improve 1% in each area, you just got 6% better as a player. You improve 2% in each area, you just got 12% better. If you can give yourself something to follow, a game plan, a blueprint, and put it down on paper, put it into your computer, into your phone, somewhere where you can come back to it, rely on it, really track your progress and what you're trying to do, that's when you actually see the difference. You're not going to see a difference if you just have an idea in your head of things that you should do and you go do them and you don't track it. You don't get enough out of that. And so we're going to do this together today. I'm going to make a spreadsheet of this. I will give it to you for free. I'll put it somewhere in the description, or maybe you can comment or follow me on Instagram, send me a DM, I'll send it to you. I'll figure out a way to get it to you for free. This is for you, and again, this is something everybody should be doing. And so taking it from the top, we got to evaluate all 6 of these. We got to evaluate, honestly, where am I at today in each category. And so let's start with this. Let's start with number 1, hitting. We're going to talk about power and contact. All right, so number 1, and this is no order. All 5 are very important. It's important to know too, if you're a player that has certain strengths, those should be actually at the top of your list. If I'm a power hitting first baseman, my hitting power is at the top of my list of things that I got to keep getting better at. You want to be a well-rounded player, but when you watch a pro game, you watch a major league game, all right, like you take a look at like the people who are the best of the best in the world at what they do. Most of them aren't the best at everything. They're the best at one thing, 1 or 2 things. And so a coach or a manager is looking for a first baseman that can hit home runs for the team. They're looking for RBIs, right? And then they're looking for somebody who can play shortstop and be very strong defensively, right? So that's why you'll see in the major leagues tons of shortstops who are not the best hitters because they're the best fielders on the team. Tons of first basemen who aren't the best fielders. They can do their job, but they're there to hit home runs. Like they just are. Pitchers, right? Between starters, relievers, closers. Each one has a different role and something different they're looking for. You're going to look for a starter who can be consistent over more than 1 or 2 innings. You're going to look for a closer who can give you his best 1 inning, usually a guy that throws really hard, right? So that's why you see a guy throwing upper 90s, maybe in the hundreds, but he's not going to do that over a 5, 6, 7 inning outing, right? So everyone has a different responsibility, a different strength, and that's the key. You got to understand, what are my strengths? And the more time you can spend on taking a strength from good to great to the top 1%, that's what you want to do. Because when you can do that, now you really get noticed. Now you take yourself off of the page that everyone else is on, and you're in a brand new category over here. And so, again, that's just really important for you to understand. You don't want to be just good at everything and great at nothing. You want to have a couple things that you master. And that's the way you got to approach the off season. That's the way you got to attack your training, with that same mentality. So, not to get not to get carried away. Hitting power. All right. Hitting power, they're looking for three things. They're looking for exit velocity, so it's a real number of how fast the ball comes off your bat. That's a measurable thing. But they also want to see you drive the ball into the gaps in the game. Can you actually display your power, not just in a batting cage, but in the game? And they're looking for home runs. So those are the three things. Exit velocity, can you drive the ball in the gaps and get extra base hits instead of just singles, right? Doubles, triples. And then can you also hit the ball over the fence when needed? And you don't have to have all three. There's plenty of great hitters that have, they have tons of doubles throughout the season. They're the three hitter. They get on base. They still have power. It doesn't mean they're hitting 50 home runs a season. They will hit home runs, but they also have a great ability to just drive the ball through the gaps. And then there's the home run hitters, as the guys that they can put the ball in the air, and usually it ends up going over the fence more often than not compared to the rest of the pack, right? And that's what we're talking about. Like, you look at an Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, just a guy with freak power. Those are the guys that can hit the ball in the air a little bit too much and get away with it because they have so much power it'll eventually go over the fence. That's not everybody. You've got to understand that that's like 1% of the guys that can do that. If you are one of those people, then more power to you, but you've got to be able to recognize what you are. You got to know your identity as a player before anything else. It's the same in any sport as well. Like, know your identity as a player. Okay, number 2 here, hitting contact. And so, look, this boils down to this. Can you actually hit? Like, seriously, can you hit? When a coach watches you, can you hit in the cage and hit line drives consistently? Can you translate that to the game and actually get on base and hit pitching, right? Hit live pitching. Can you hit a fastball? Can you hit a curveball? Can you hit a lefty and a righty? Can you hit different arm slots? And you don't have to, nobody's going to master all of that because baseball is a game of failure. You only need to be batting 300 in the 300s to be looked at as a successful hitter, right? It's a game of failure. 3 out of 10 times we're trying to get on base. And if we do that consistently over time, you're in the Hall of Fame, hopefully. But, can you actually hit? And so a coach or a scout, and what you should be looking at within yourself too, if you can video your swing or get feedback from your coaches, do you have a mechanically sound swing? Like, period. Is your swing mechanically sound? Right? Is your back getting in the right position consistently? Is your barrel in the hitting zone long enough? Are you swinging level long enough? Are you short enough to the ball? Right? Do you get good extension through the ball so that your bat isn't exiting the hitting zone too early? And all of those things give you a better chance for more consistency. You get more line drives, better contact, and over time become a better hitter. They're looking at your stance. They're looking at a guy with a funky stance saying, okay, does what he is doing now, is that actually going to be consistent over time, right? Or are they going to start running into some problems and maybe some slumps because of this unorthodox hitting style? And I'm not telling you how to hit. I'm just telling you, if you are shying away from the basics too much, you are making hitting harder to succeed, and hitting's hard enough as it is. So in my opinion, there's no reason to be making hitting already harder than it is. And so they're looking at the mechanically sound swing. Can you get on base, right? Can you get on base? Meaning, can you hit the ball hard still? Can you make yourself a tough out, right? Because if you make hard contact and you're forcing guys to dive for the ball or really get in front of it, you're going to give yourself a better chance to get on base. And again, that kind of comes back to just being able to hit the ball solid. And this is what I mean when I say drive the ball in the gaps or have consistency with line drives. Lastly, with hitting contact, they might be thinking about, do you strike out a lot? That's a pretty important one for a team. If you got a guy that's striking out a ton, not only is he not getting on base, he's not moving runners over. He's not as reliable in the lineup. That's just the reality of it. So those are all the things with hitting contact that we're going to look at. But to put a bow on that, like, if you want to be able to have better contact, you need better mechanics. You got to have a solid foundation in your swing where you're doing some of the consistent things. And if you want to know more about that, I put out a whole free course on my channel. It's called Hit Like a Pro, and I go through every single part of the swing, every body part, and how each one is broken down, and you can get a ton of information there to really understand the swing. All right, number 3 is throwing. And so throwing, what are they looking at? And again, when I say what are they looking at, I mean like an outside coach, scout, somebody who might want to bring you on their team, maybe their travel team, maybe offer you a scholarship to play on their college team. Maybe a high school coach looking at the group of guys trying out, right? It's anybody. Like anytime you perform in front of somebody, you're displaying and showcasing who you are, whether that's training or a game or a showcase. So with throwing, they're looking at velocity. Okay, they're looking at velocity, but if you can't hit the side of a barn, they're not going to really care how hard you throw it if you can't throw it accurately. And so you got to be able to hit a guy in the chest consistently. You have to be able to make the plays in the game. That's a great, that's something that really gives a scout information on yourself, how you display that velocity in the game. So if I'm an outfielder and I go to cannon, but when a guy's going home, I throw the ball over the backstop every time, what good is that going to be? Or if I have a great arm from shortstop or third base, I can't make the outs consistently, I have too many errors. Again, it's not really helping me out as much. It's going to put a little asterisk or a little red mark on your name when a scout's evaluating you or a coach is evaluating you and kind of just jotting notes down on you. So they are evaluating the velocity, and that's important. You got to be able to have a strong arm, but you got to also be able to throw it accurately. Now, here's the other thing, and this is kind of talking about how we use it in the game. Can you make a throw or a play in the game when it counts, right? 2 outs, crucial game, tight game, playoff game, or do you, sometimes get the yips and can't make the plays when it counts the most? That's another thing too that's very telling of what you can, what you bring to the table as a player. Now for throwing, how do we increase our velocity? Again, I did a video series with Carmen and we did some drills and some things you should be doing routinely to help that out. Talked about long toss. You should be doing long toss when you can get outside a couple times a week. You should be utilizing resistance bands. You should be getting in the weight room. You combine all these things. You should be working on how to improve your mechanics, right? And so there's not usually just one thing to do to throw harder. It's the combination of adding all the pieces together. Number 4, fielding. All right, and so here's the thing with fielding. The question is this: it's not so much that you have to have every part of fielding figured out. You need to, number 1, have a position, and number 2, a position that you've mastered, right? So for me as an outfielder, I didn't need to be the best guy at turning to or catching a ground ball. I needed to have a great range in the field, right? Particularly center field or right field are my 2 main positions. I need to have range, right? I need to be able to steal base hits. If I can take away a ball in the gap, like a line drive in the gap, I just stole a double away from the other team. That's huge, right? And so I need to have speed to do that, which is going to be our next tool on here as well. But I need to be a good fielder. I need to be consistent with the glove, right? I need to be consistent with the glove. And if you can do some things that are a bonus, like you can display that you can make diving catches and make them consistently, again, that's something that is just going to give you another edge. But master your position, right? If you're a catcher, be the best at what you do. Have the quickest transfer. Try your best to have one of the best pop times. Try your best to be a great defensive blocker, not letting balls get by you, especially in the dirt or wild pitches, right? Figure out exactly what they're evaluating for your position and get better at those specific things. It's not just all about being, well-rounded as a fielder. Can you master your craft? That's really what we're talking about here when we talk about getting to the next level, getting noticed by somebody at a higher level, college or beyond. First baseman, right? Can you scoop the ball consistently? They're looking for that. Shortstops and second baseman. Can you have a quick transfer? Can you turn two consistently? And also, do you have range, right? Can you steal a ball away that's hit up the middle through, past the pitcher? Can you cover more grounds to where they're not, those hard ground balls in between you and third base, or for second base between you and first base? Can you cover those? Because that's the difference maker. That's what they want to see at the end of the day, because that's what leads the team to victory if you can do that more often. I'll go through each position just real quickly. Third base, they want to see a good arm, right? You don't have to be the fastest guy, but if you're so slow where they can bunt on you all day and you can't make the play, that's a red flag, right? But do you have a good arm? Meaning, can you catch the ball down the foul line and throw it all the way across the first base for an out? Because that's a very common play that coaches need a third baseman to make. Talked about outfield. Pitching is its own thing. So if you're a pitcher, they're evaluating you as a pitcher. They're not evaluating you as a fielder unless it's a red flag that you literally can't make the plays or field a ground ball. But for the most part, fielding doesn't come into play as a pitcher. Hitting and hitting power and contact doesn't come into a play as a pitcher unless you're a two-way guy. Running speed as well. So I just want to note that pitchers are evaluated as pitchers and their ability to pitch. These other tools, this is for position players. I thought it goes without saying, but I'll mention that just in case. Number 5, running speed. All right. This is huge. This is one that jumps off the page, and this is one that is used on all parts of the field, offensively and defensively. And man, it drives me crazy when I hear like a guy say like, "Oh, I'm just not fast," or "Oh, like I'm just average speed," and then they totally ignore it because it can always be improved. I don't care where your starting point is or your God-given gift for speed is. You can always improve it, right? Like for me, I was blessed with speed. God gave me speed when I was born. I was always the fastest guy in my class, on my team, when I played football, when I played baseball, whatever. And when I was a freshman, sophomore range, I ran a 60-yard dash in 6.7 seconds, which was good. That was good speed. I'm a base stealer. I'm above average runner. Well, I could have very easily just said, all right, if I had the same mindset that somebody else had, they're like, oh, this is just what I am. I'm a 6'7" guy, and just figured that's what it would be for the rest of my high school career, then that's what it would have been, right? But I didn't. I worked on it. I kept improving it each year. And then I ran a 6.37 60-yard dash at a pro showcase in front of pro scouts. It was an Atlanta Braves showcase. So it was a big deal, big time to have a good running time. And I had my fastest time then. But I don't say this to brag, but I went from a 6'7" to a 6'37", right? So 0.3, 0.4 seconds I shaved off. Well, what if you were a 7 flat runner and you had that same approach? All right, now you went from a 7 flat down to maybe a 6.6 or a 6.7. Now you're a base stealer. Now you're an above average runner. Now there's a green box next to your running speed instead of it being just neutral or red. Like that, if somebody makes a little, whatever they're using, a green highlighter next to your scores, when you go to a showcase or you get evaluated, you want something that jumps off the page. You want something that's not normal. And again, these measurables, these are the main things. These are the easiest things right away to get noticed, to separate yourself. Because again, you can't dispute that. That's a number and that's been measured, right? There's plenty of coaches that have opinions on a guy's mechanics, on a guy's ability to have good hitting contact, on what they think of a person. But the things that are not an opinion, that are measured by numbers, okay, batting average, how many home runs you're hitting in the game, your running time on a 60-yard dash, how hard you throw on the radar gun, these kinds of things can't be disputed. So man, like if you want to have a great resume, if you want to have some leverage as a player, master these measurable things. Get better at these things that can be measured with numbers. All right, so that's crucial. Let's go into our last one here. And again, this is number 6 in my opinion. Most, if I say 6-tool player, most people, you might have an idea of what I'm talking about, but 5 tools is what's really measured as a baseball or softball player. All right, it's those, again, hitting power, hitting contact, throwing, fielding, running speed. That if somebody's a 5-tool player, meaning they have all those, that's what we're talking about. But if you want to have longevity, if you want to, really reach your goals, if you want to play as high as you can play, you need the 6th one, and that's mindset and the intangibles. All right, mindset and intangibles. And so, what am I talking about here? How confident are you as a player? How do you carry yourself? Can you handle failure well? Do you show bad body language on the field? Can you be a leader? Are you more about yourself or more about the team? And that's getting noticed by people watching the game outside in. They see those kinds of things. Are you a distraction? They're seeing those kinds of things as well. Your coach sees those things more than anyone. And if a college coach comes over and asks your coach, is he a distraction? He's not going to lie. He's going to tell him everything about you, right? Because he knows more about you than anybody else. And so, again, if you're a distraction, man, that is just a red X across your name. That has nothing to do with your talent. You could be working your tail off all year, all off season, and be a really talented player, but you do not want to be a distraction and have something that's so much in your power and control to get a grip of. You do not want to, that's just frustrates me thinking about a guy that does that and limits his ability because he's a distraction and is more about himself than the team. Next one, do you bring good energy that fuels the rest of the team, or do you bring negative energy that drains the rest of the team? It's just along the lines of the same thing with being a distraction that we're talking about. All of these questions, these are things you should ask yourself. These are things that are being asked about you from, college coaches, scouts, other coaches, just any observer of the game, period. Right? And so you need to take these seriously, right? And if your confidence isn't real high, or your ability to handle failure isn't real high, you got to work on it. You got to evaluate what it is that's making this happen, and you got to address how to fix it. And it's one of those things, you can't just have a perspective shift or a mindset shift and then think that one time will fix it all. I use this analogy all the time. If I wanted to get in shape, I'm not going to get in shape by just showing up at the gym every once in a while. Or I'm not going to get in shape by knowing the workouts of how to do. I can know them as well as anybody else. But if I don't actually put the reps in at it, I won't see the results. It's the same exact thing with mindset here, with handling failure, with confidence, with being able to focus and block out distractions. There's a whole category of things here. As a matter of fact, I'll show you right now what we have for them. Right, so I've been writing a book the last year and a half, on and off, and I have categories in my book here. It's called The Mindset That Dominates. As of now, I'll pull this up right now and tell you what are the things that matter the most. And it's not just like one or two things. It's not just, oh, I'm confident. Oh, I got mindset figured out. Oh, I can handle failure. I got it all figured out. There's so much more to it. So for me, the way I look at it is this. You got a tool belt on everywhere you go. You got a tool belt on when you go to practice, when you go to your games. And this is an invisible tool belt. And on your tool belt are all the mental tools you need to use, because you never know what's going to come up in front of you. You never know when you're going to need more confidence or more mental toughness or a better job to handle failure or more focus or more drive or whatever it is. And so you want to be able to build up tools, multiple tools on your tool belt to have. And these are mental tools we're talking about. But let me go through my table of contents for you. So vision and motive. You need to understand what your why is behind what you're doing. If you don't actually have a purpose or a why or a real motive behind it, you will not be nearly as driven to go accomplish these things. You need to have the right perspectives, right? And first, a starting point, it's about having a positive outlook on things. What lens do you choose to see something through? Quick example, if you strike out, do you have the perspective that you're just a failure and you struck out and you can't hit? Or do you have the perspective that there's a reason you're missing the ball and you're getting feedback through your at bat, and you have coaches that can help you out if you ask them what you're doing? Maybe your timing's off, maybe you're under the ball, maybe your stance is off, whatever. And now you're more prepared for the next rep or next at bat if you go extract out the information from that failure. That's the perspective you need to have, right? And there's dozens of different perspectives we need to adopt to learn and get better. But perspectives are huge. You need to know what your identity is as a player. That's like an intangible perspective as well, because when you go into your trainings, you want to have a purpose to really get better at what it is that you're doing. You need to know your identity. You need to know what it is that your coaches and scouts are looking for within you. Because most of us are not going to be great at everything. Almost all of us are going to be good at one or two things, maybe three, and then we want to go from good to great within that category. We talked about this earlier in the video. Okay, another one is the perspective of how talented do you need to be. And I don't want to go super far to this one, but if you're trying to get to here, for anybody, I don't care how talented you are, who you are. I guarantee you this is the same for Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, the best of the best. Talent will take you this far, and at some point, it's a different point for everybody. Sometimes it's here, sometimes it's here. But at some point, for you to get to here, you need to pass talent off to the intangibles and the mindset you have that can take you the rest of the way to become the best you can be. All right, that one for me is a non-negotiable. And I experienced that firsthand myself, I'll tell you that. So I was very talented as a player coming out. I was considered to be a 5-tool player as a baseball player. But again, like that 6th tool, if I was stronger in that area, that probably would have helped propel me to a higher level in the minors, maybe majors, who knows. But I know it would have propelled me up higher than where I was. Playing style. Okay, this is intangible. What kind of playing style do you play with, right? Are you timid? Are you afraid to make mistakes, right? Do you play shy and tight and restricted and always fearing about what can go wrong? Or do you play loose, free, aggressive? Do you play in attack mode? And again, the playing style itself is totally separate from your talent, okay? It's a decision mentally of how you want to approach the game, approach a training session day in and day out. Handling failure, okay, that's an obvious one. And to me, the answer to handling failure is having more mental toughness. Okay, I'll say that again. The answer to handling failure is having more mental toughness. All right, and so that's something that I go into in deep detail in my other videos and even in this book to give you more tips on how to actually do that. You got to have the perspective that you're there to compete. You got to be a competitor, right? And again, being a competitor is an internal thing. That's an intangible. That's not a tool that's measured. It goes in the package of this 6th tool that we're talking about as in mindset and in the intangibles. Nerves and confidence, right? You got to make sure you can control your nerves, and you got to make sure that you have confidence within yourself. And that the way you carry yourself, your body language, what other teammates and coaches say about you, and what kind of scouting report you get, and how you handle things, those all are packaged into confidence, right? But we all know that there hasn't been any super successful players that lacked confidence. They all were extremely confident in what they could do on the field. Focus. Okay, this is a huge one. And I'll give you just a quick hint here. Focus is more about locking in on a simple set of tasks or things to focus on, and it's less about trying to figure out the complexity of the game, right? You've got to eliminate distractions and even eliminate things that you think serve you but really don't. Right? A couple quick ones would be like the scoreboard, how much time's on the clock. For a hitter, like sometimes even the counts, right? You got to have an approach depending on the count, but at a certain point, when it's 0-2, you keep thinking that the count's 0-2, that's not going to serve you any good. That's just going to make you more nervous. And it's just feeding your mind negative thoughts, and it gives you a feeling internally that you're going to strike out. The more you think it's 0-2, what else do you think is going to come from there if that's what your only thoughts are? To perform at a high level, you've got to be focused at your highest ability, and there's things that you can do that are in your control to make your focus better, and there's things that will totally take your focus out of it. All right, the last couple I have here, I'm not going to go through them all. I'm telling you, there's a lot more than just, 1 or 2, but routines. Being all in, anticipation, and that one with anticipation, and depending on your position, like that's something that a scout's definitely going to evaluate. Think about a football player and think about a quarterback, his ability to anticipate the defense. That's one of the most valued skills at that position. And so with different sports, different positions, anticipation can be more important for one person compared to another. But I'll tell you this, it's important across the board. It just depends on what it is that you're doing, what your position is, what your job is. But being able to anticipate means that you are mentally ready. Like to me, that's what we're talking about here. If you're good at having good anticipation, you're a guy that's in the dugout and you're laser focused on the game. You're not just talking to your buddies the whole time or dozing off or looking in the stands, right? That's somebody that's just out of it. That's somebody that's not focused and is not anticipating how the game's going, right? Your anticipation is like your cheat sheet to the game. And it has a lot to do with mental effort, right? Somebody that has a lot of mental effort and focus internally of what's going on can anticipate better, they can prepare better, simply just because they are, they're present, right? And so when you're present in the moment, your ability to anticipate the future gets better. So look, we're going to finish up there. I wrote this down. You should be writing this down. You should be getting down a piece of paper right now and just jotting down each thing and then evaluating yourself. Give yourself numbers on this. And it doesn't need to be perfect, but like what you feel like truly in your heart, what your number is, go on a scale of whatever, 1 to 5, 1 to 10. Where are you with your hitting power, your hitting contact, your throwing, your fielding, your running speed, and your mindset? And then give some more detail on mindset of things that you think you're good at and things that you need to improve from the things that we talked about. And man, this is the same with other sports as well. Figure out the tools that are being evaluated, figure out what you're being evaluated per your position, and see where you're at. Give yourself a number, and then from there, you can move on to the next step and figure out, okay, what do I need to actually do now to improve in that area? If you wanted to dive in deeper on one of these and you're curious about it, again, I got tons of videos on my channel about hitting power, contact, throwing, fielding. I talk about mechanics with the running speed. There's things that you can do on your own every day to try to improve in these areas. And if you have any questions about it too, comment below. I'll put as much stuff down below in the description that I can. And man, really try to apply this, right? Do this for yourself. Send it to somebody who should do it as well. Send it to a friend or a teammate. You guys can do it together even. You can really get good at a faster rate when you do it with an accountability partner, somebody that's trying to have the same path as you. And so again, it could be a family member, a teammate, a friend, somebody. Share it with them, and you guys can do this together.